Good afternoon, Broomfield families. How you doing today? All right. So my name is Abby Yellman. I'm the Director of Library Services and Cultural Affairs for the City and County of Broomfield. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you today for Broomfield Library's first ever One Book, One Broomfield Junior. Woohoo! So One Book, One Broomfield Junior was inspired by our current program held for adults each November. We wanted children and families to have a similar opportunity to engage with literature and amazing authors. We are thrilled to present today's program to all of you. Broomfield Library's had a big year, and it's only March. The library is now fine-free for all patrons, so if you didn't know that, no more fines. Woohoo! Programming engagement is at an all-time high with programs happening at the library, Broomfield Auditorium, the Broomfield Depot Museum, in Ven HQ, the library's makerspace, and through our partnership with CSU Extension. Some upcoming programs that I wanted to mention to all of you in case you're interested. On Friday, April 26th and Saturday, April 27th, we will have our Dia de los Niños, our Day of the Children event. So if you're interested in that, it's free, tons of multilingual story times, a great program on Friday night. Know you're all welcome for that. On May 3rd, Friday, May 3rd, the Broomfield Auditorium will be doing big screen favorites and showing Ghostbusters. And that's free for families, any attendees, so you can just come in, hang out, and watch a really cool classic movie. Artist in residence, Leah Reddle, will be here for multiple programs in May, and she'll be showcasing traditional practices related to henna designs, so that's really exciting. Summer reading. Can you believe it is almost summer already? Summer reading will kick off on Saturday, June 1st. And then I wanted to mention something that we're not sure a lot of our families know we have. The library has a program called the Experience Pass. This is a pass that you guys can check out for different organizations throughout the Front Range area, including the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, the Butterfly Pavilion, a ton of different museums or cultural experiences. I know Clifford Still's on that list. We just secured free entry for folks to the Denver Zoo and the Botanic Gardens. So that will be coming in the next month or so. So this is a pass that you can check out online or come in and pick one up where you can take your family and experience these cool cultural institutions that we have here in the Front Range area. So please know you're welcome to do that. So events like this one today, they're not possible without support from many, and I would like to take a moment to recognize a few people and organizations that have made today's event possible. If I say your name or you're here representing your organization, please stand and we'll give them all a round of applause at the end. So how about Broomfield High School's Crochet Club, if you're here with that group. Outcast Knitting and Crochet Group. So that out there, I see somebody, all right. The Book Bar, which is probably standing up out in the auditorium gallery. Yeah, give a shout out to the Book Bar. They did a great job, and there's some books for sale if you want to pick up one of Mac's books after the event. Broomfield Library Friends Foundation. This organization financially supports many of the library's programs for all ages. If your budget allows today, they're a big reason why we're able to do free programming for families and for children. So if it's in your budget today and you want to throw a donation in a bucket, it's right out there on the table, no pressure. And then, of course, the staff. I have an amazing staff that work in my department, including the Broomfield Library, in Ven HQ, Broomfield Auditorium. We have great partners in the communications department. Shout out to Jesse back there who's filming this event for us. The recreation department, our city manager's office, and of course, our Broomfield City Council. Let's give them all a round of applause. So real quickly, because I know that you're ready, right? You're ready for the big event. Following the presentation today, there will be time for a few questions. So if anybody has a burning question for our author, be thinking about what that is. There will be a book signing after the presentation as well. If the line gets super long, it's really nice outside. So if you want to line up outside, that's okay. Or we can wrap it back into the Audi on my right side. If you guys want to do that, please feel free to stand in line. Mac's been great about being willing to sign books for all the kiddos that are in attendance. So now, it is my privilege to introduce City Council member Deven Shaff. Councilmember Shaff not only advises the One Book, One Broomfield program, he also serves on our committee. He has been a vocal and active support for programming throughout our department related to the library, arts, and sciences. Councilmember Shaff will say a few words and introduce our guest author. Thank you all for your continued support of our programs. Have a great time.
Hello and welcome. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you. It's my favorite holiday. I don't know about all of you. As a city council member and on behalf of the city and county of Broomfield, I welcome you to the first annual One Book, One Broomfield Junior program. So thank you for your support of this first one, and we'll see you next year for sure. This year's featured author is a Caldecott-Honor winning author. And I don't know how many of you have seen this, but there's this little silver medallion right here on the front of these books. And do any of you kiddos out there know what that means? What kind of special recognition does that mean? Yeah. Right there in the blue sweatshirt. That's you looking backward. Yep, right there. It's a great book, yes. So the Caldecott Medal is awarded annually by the American Library Association to the artist of the most distinguished American picture book for children. And get this, several honor books are chosen as well, and 2 times Mac's books have, in conjunction with illustrator John Clausen, have been awarded that distinction. Pretty cool, huh? We got a pretty awesome author here today. So the Broomfield Library staff has shared many of Mac's books with kids over the years, and they are always popular. In fact, I put a bunch on reserve, and I still haven't been able to get them through the library. So that's how popular they are. For the inaugural One Book, One Broomfield Junior program, we're focusing the author talk on on extra yarn, which you also see up there. Mac has written over 30 books, but we chose this particular book this year because of its message of importance of community, of caring for one another, of kindness and generosity, and of a single child's ability to change the world around her. Without further ado, I am pleased to present Mac Barnett.
Oh, wow, thank you, thank you. Oh, please, please, please. Please. No, please, more applause. Please. Oh, that feels good. I need that. Oh, I need it. Good afternoon, Broomfield. How's everybody doing? Good, good. Thank you so much for coming out. I am so happy to be here. I am so happy to be inaugurating this great program. So proud that our book, Extra Yarn, was selected. It's true what you just heard. My name is Mac Barnett. I'm an author. I write books. I've written 35 books that are out. I write some picture books, like Extra Yarn, or these just books about shapes. I write some chapter books, the Terrible 2 series, or the Brixton Brothers, or Mac B. Kid Spy. And I figured, hey, since I'm here and you're all just sitting there staring at me, maybe we could read some of those books right now. So I'm going to read you a book real quick. This is a book that I did with John Clausen. John Clausen is a good friend of mine, and I'll be telling you a little bit more about him and how we work together. We've made a lot of picture books over the years. We've made 6 picture books together, and I'm going to read to you one of those books. You can see it up on the stage, too. This book does not have, like, a title on the cover, but you might be able to figure out what it's called. That's right, it's called Triangle. And I will read it to you right now. So there's Triangle waving. You can wave back at him. You don't have to, no pressure, but, you know, you're here, he's here, why not? Triangle. By me. And my friend John Clausen. And he'd want me to tell you that he's never been prouder of a copyright page than that one. This is Triangle. This is Triangle's house. This is Triangle in his house. And that is Triangle's door. One day, Triangle walked out his door and away from his house. He was going to play a sneaky trick on Square. He walked past small triangles and medium triangles and big triangles. He walked past shapes that weren't triangles anymore. They were shapes with no names. He walked until he got to a place where there were squares. Still thinking of his sneaky trick, he walked past big squares and medium squares and small squares until he got to Square's house. Now, said Triangle, I will play my sneaky trick. Triangle walked up to Square's door and said, "Sss," just like a snake. Square was afraid of snakes. Oh me, oh my, said Square. Go away, you snake. Leave my door. Sss, said Triangle. Sss, sss, sss. Oh dear, 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 said Square. How many snakes are out there? 10? 10 million? Go away, snakes. Triangle could not hiss anymore. He was laughing too hard. Triangle, said Square. Is that you? Yes, said Triangle. I know you are afraid of snakes. I have played a sneaky trick on you. Square ran after Triangle, past small squares and medium squares and big squares. He ran past the shapes with no names, past the big triangles and medium triangles and small triangles, up to Triangle's house and right through his door. Almost. You are stuck! Triangle laughed and laughed. Then he stopped. His house was all dark. Triangle was afraid of the dark. It's too dark, said Triangle. You're blocking my light. Go away, you block! Leave my door! It was Square's turn to laugh. I know you are afraid of the dark. Now I have played a sneaky trick on you. You see, Triangle? This was my plan all along. But do you really believe him? And that is the end of that story. Thank you so much. Thank you. So that was a picture book I wrote. I want to read to you a little bit from a chapter book series that I just started too. This is called Mac B Kid Spy. This is a little different for me than other things that I have written. For instance, this book Triangle that I just read you, it is a work of fiction. What does that mean if something is a work of fiction? Who can help me? Yes, right there, wearing a jacket with some pink lining. It means it's not true. That's right. It's just made up. How can we tell that Triangle was a work of fiction? Yes. Because triangles can't walk and talk, and they don't have eyes. They're all very good points. They're very good points. So this book, Mac B Kid Spy, is the first of something that's a little different for me. And even though I've written a bunch of books, I still get nervous when I talk to people about it because it's something else entirely. It is my memoir, or as some people say, my memoir. In fact, I feel like some of those people might. Can we all just say memoir together on the count of 3? 1, 2, 3. Memoir. Ooh la la. That's fantastic. Now, what is a memoir? I'm going to write it down here so you can see. There's sort of a clue in the way that it's spelled. So if you want to take a guess at what a memoir is, and when you answer, if you wouldn't mind rephrasing the question, if you would say, a memoir is, because I really like it when other people say memoir. So what's a memoir? Yeah, right there. A memory. That's right. A memoir is a memory. And now I'm just seeing how I wrote. That is awful. Look at that. I'm supposed to be a role model. And then I do that? A memoir is a memory. That's right. So these are my memories of when I was a kid, like many of you. The people I knew, the places I went, the things I did, especially all of the spy missions that I went on for the Queen of England. It's not a joke, so I don't know. It seemed like an outburst that was just outrageous and rude. So first, I'm going to read to you. This comes before the book actually starts. Some books have a page that comes even before page 1. This is one of those books. It's amazing. It's very fancy. It's called An Author's Note. I'll read it for you now. A note from the author. My name is Mac Barnett. I am an author. But before I was an author, I was a kid. And when I was a kid, I was a spy. An author's job is to make up stories. But the story you are about to read is true. This actually happened to me. So, before we go any further, as you can see, there's a lot of classified information, top secret intelligence. I just can't have you running around spreading my secrets willy-nilly. So I need to know. Can I trust you? That was the most unconvincing answer. What is going on in this town? I found that answer to be unconvincing, and to be honest, while you were answering, I was looking at your faces, and frankly, I found many of those to be unconvincing as well. So just to be safe, I'm going to need everybody. I had to do this when I became a secret agent. I'm going to need everybody to take an oath of secrecy. So could everybody please raise your right hand in the air? And I'm going to have you swear on my book here. We don't have enough copies to go around for everybody. Although there are copies available right here at the library, you should check them out. But my friend Allison, would you put your left hand on the book and keep your right hand raised? So my friend Allison here in the front row, she has her right hand on the book. If the rest of you could just kind of gently lay your left hand on the shoulder of the person next to you, creating a line of electricity and germs that runs all the way through the room, through Allison into the book. And now with your right hands raised, please repeat after me. I promise, solemnly and freely, that I will never tell an enemy agent how great this book is. I won't share any information about hovercrafts, Nintendo Game Boys, karate fights, cobra fights, the secret pressure points on the human body, dogs, corgis, which are a type of dog, kings, queens, and other heads of state, or the step-by-step instructions on how to break into an art museum and steal the Mona Lisa. This I promise. You did it! Clap it up for yourselves! Oh, what a beautiful moment. Thank you so much. All right, now I know I can trust you. Now, this book is illustrated by Mike Lowry, and he did all the pictures. This is the only non-John Clausen book we'll be looking at today, and so I'm going to put the pictures up, because there are lots of words and lots of pictures that tell the story. So this is chapter 1, page 1 of Mac B. Kid Spy, number 1, Mac Undercover, by Mac Barnett, illustrated by Mike Lowry. Just a quick side note, how many times did I get my name on the front cover of this book? 3 times. That is a world record for the most times an author has ever gotten their name on the cover of the book. It's very exciting. I actually had a cool idea to get my name on there a 4th time. I asked the illustrator, Mike Lowry, if he would change his name to Mac Lowry. And he said, no way, dude, I don't want to change my name. And then he said, please stop calling me at 4:30 in the morning. And then he just hung up on me, which I think is really rude. But we're not here to talk about how rude Mike Lowry is. We are here to celebrate literacy and learning. Here is Mac B. Kids by number 1, chapter 1, The Call. This is the house I grew up in. It is on the top of a hill in a little town called Castro Valley. That's a real place. You can look it up. This is really what my house looked like. My mom and I lived there. This is me. This is my mom. Since it was just the two of us, I had a lot of responsibilities. I did the dishes, packed my lunches, cooked our dinners, washed the laundry, dusted, vacuumed, and cleaned out our rabbits' litter boxes. I wanted a dog. We had rabbits instead. It was also my responsibility to answer the phone. I liked answering the phone, even though it was never for me. One afternoon, the phone rang, and it was for me. It was the Queen of England. Hello, I said. Hello, she said. Can I speak to Mac? Speaking, I said. Mac, this is the Queen of England, she said. I would like to ask you for a favor. Okay, I said. Whenever somebody asks you for a favor, it is a good idea to ask them what the favor is before you say okay. But I had never talked to a queen before. So I said, okay. Wonderful, said the queen. I will tell you a secret. Last night, somebody stole the crown jewels. No, I said. Yes, said the queen. This is the favor. You shall find the missing treasure and bring it back to me. Wow, I said. Yes, said the queen. And this was very exciting. But I had a question. I have a question, I said. I hope it is a quick question, said the queen. Why me? The Queen of England sighed. That is a stupid question. My teacher says there's no such thing as stupid questions. The Queen of England frowned. I could tell she was frowning, even over the phone. That is just something teachers say in America. But I'm not a teacher from America. I am a queen from England. Oh, I said, okay, but still, why me? I'm just a kid, and I don't even live in England. Castro Valley is in California. You'd know that if you looked it up. Mac, said the queen, you are the smartest kid in your class. You have straight A's in every subject, except handwriting. I'm working on that, I said. Then it's settled. You shall take the next flight to London. But tomorrow is a school day. I shall write a note, said the queen, but my mom will be worried about me. I shall write another note, said the queen. Goodbye. She hung up. There was a knock at the front door. When I opened it, nobody was there, but an envelope lay on our welcome mat for Mac Barnett's eyes only. And that's where we'll stop. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. So, I'm going to show you another picture book that John Clausen and I did together. And John and I have been making picture books. Extra Yarn was our first picture book that we made together. We've been making picture books. We've known each other for 8 years now. And he and I are really good friends, and we get to make books together, which is really nice. Because something that you might not know about picture books is when you're making picture books, the author and the illustrator actually aren't supposed to talk to each other. And sometimes the author doesn't even get to see the pictures until they're all done. But even if I have something that I want to say to John, what I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to call our editor. And our editor is in charge of taking a story and taking it all the way from just some words into a book with pictures, into a real book with pages, and then help it get out into the world. And what I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to call our editor, and I'm supposed to say, hey, will you tell John Clausen this? And then she calls John Clausen, and she tells him whatever she wants to. And it's like that game Telephone. You know that game Telephone when you're passing around a message to people and it's supposed to change a little bit as it goes through each person. But that's not really why the message changes. The message really changes because it goes through like one kid. Or maybe some of you are that kid. And there's this beautiful message being passed around and it's like, the robins have laid their eggs. The robins have laid their eggs. The robins have laid their eggs. And then it gets to that one kid, and that kid's like, your mom is a vacuum cleaner. Well, that kid grows up to become an editor. And they mess with all of our messages. And I should say that my wife is a children's book editor, and she does not like that joke very much. But it's true. So, John and I actually, at first, we would sneak around and we would talk behind the editor's back and we would make books together. Now our editor knows that we make books that way and she lets us do it. But the next book I'm going to read to you is a book that we came up with together. We were eating breakfast and we were talking about the shape of a book, the trim size. So how tall the book is and how wide it is. That's called the trim size. So the shaped books, they're all squares. They're the same size. But we were talking about books that are really tall or really wide, and how it would be fun to use the shape of the book. Maybe it would be really wide, and you'd move in one direction or another, or it would be really tall, and you'd move up or down. And we decided, let's do a tall book, and let's either move up or down. And then John and I both decided that down was a more interesting direction than up. And both of us liked to dig holes when we were a kid. So I started saying, what if two kids were digging a hole, and they were trying to find something spectacular in the ground, some treasure. And I started talking about how this book would work, and John started getting excited, and he had a napkin there that he didn't really use for his breakfast because he's a filthy eater. And he started drawing on this napkin just the sketches, and we came up with that book together at breakfast, and worked on it for the next couple years together. And it is this book right here, Sam and Dave Dig a Hole. And I will read it to you now. But in this book, I need everybody to use their best eagle eyes, because even though the words in this book are beautiful and accomplished, the pictures are kind of important too. Sam and Dave Dig a Hole, by me again, and John again. On Monday, Sam and Dave dug a hole. When should we stop digging? Asked Sam. We are on a mission, said Dave. We won't stop digging until we find something spectacular. They dug until their heads were underground, but they still had not found anything spectacular. So they kept digging. They took a break. Dave drank chocolate milk out of a canteen. Sam ate animal cookies he had wrapped in their grandfather's kerchief. Maybe, said Dave, the problem is that we are digging straight down. Yes, says Sam, that could be the problem. I think we should dig in another direction, said Dave. Yes, said Sam, that is a good idea. I have a new idea, said Dave. Let's split up. Really, said Sam. Just for a little while, said Dave. It will help our chances. So Dave went one way, and Sam went another. But they did not find anything spectacular. Maybe we should go back to digging straight down, said Dave. Yes, says Sam. That is a good idea. I love how big this screen is. Oh. Sam and Dave ran out of chocolate milk, but they kept digging. They shared the last animal cookie, but they kept digging. After a while, Sam sat down. Dave, he said, I am tired. I cannot dig anymore. I am tired too, said Dave. We should take a rest. Sam and Dave fell asleep. Then Sam and Dave were falling. Sam and Dave fell down, 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 until they landed in the soft dirt. Well, said Sam. Well, said Dave. That was pretty spectacular. And they went inside for chocolate milk and animal cookies. The end. Thank you. Let me ask you a question. Did anybody notice anything weird about the end of this book? Did anybody see anything strange? Oh, I think I heard you say a pear tree. That's true. Look at that. That's true. Because they fell, and they landed. It looks a lot like their house, but there was an apple tree in the front yard when they left that morning. And there's a pear tree in the yard at this house that they end up in. Did anybody notice anything else? Yeah, you back there in the orange shirt. What did you notice? Yeah. You're right. You're right. That weather vane has changed. So on the first page here, where they started, it was a chicken. But there's a duck. It's pointing in the other direction. Let's see. Who else noticed something? Who else noticed? Yeah, in the green long sleeve shirt there. Green's not going to help us today, I realize, but... That's right. Yeah, that's right. So the flower on the porch, when they started off, there was a red tulip on the porch. But here at the end is a blue daisy. And there's one more thing. It's hard to spot. But in John Clausen's books, you always have to look at everybody's eyes, especially the animals' eyes here, and the dog's kind of helping us out with this. Yeah, what did you notice? That's right, it's a different cat. It's got a blue collar, but this cat at the beginning had a red collar. I like it because Sam and Dave are sort of oblivious as always. I love watching this dog's eyes because here's what, I mean, that's just funny. Look at him there. And then he notices, that's a different tree. And then he notices, that's a different cat. And the cat's like, yeah, I know that. But Sam and Dave didn't really realize. Now, does anybody, this is really weird. All of this stuff, all of these differences, I think it brings up a really big, really important question. And that question is, why did John Clausen mess up the pictures in this book so badly? No, I'm sorry. It was on purpose. So what happened? What do you think happened? Are there any theories, any ideas, any thoughts about what happened? Yeah, let's see. What do you think happened right there? Maybe they fell into a different state, like a different state of being, or just like Nevada. Who knows? Maybe Nevada is a different state of being, you know? Yeah, what's your theory right there? Oh, maybe they're in the front yard instead of the backyard. Interesting. Yeah, let's see. Let's get a couple more theories. These are great. All right, you look like you have one sort of in the middle there, and you're raising up. Shout it out for us. In the plaid shirt. Maybe they fell into a different world, or even a different universe. I like that a lot. I like that. Let's get a couple more. Right there wearing the hat. Mm-hmm. Maybe they dug into the literal edge of the earth, then somehow teleported back up and fell down. A scientist. And let's get one more theory here. Yeah, right in the middle with a blue jacket over your shirt. Yeah, a green shirt, blue jacket. Or maybe they dug to the other side of the world. Very interesting. These are some great... Give yourselves a big round of applause. That's fantastic. Those are some great theories. Those are some great theories. I'll tell you a little bit about the first book John and I made together, too. We became friends before we started making books together. And we both have the same agent. And what a book agent does is they're like a matchmaker. And so whenever you make a story, an agent matches up your story with a publishing house, and then they take 15% of all of your money forever. It's a good job. And our agent, he thought we would be friends. Our agent is pretty much, he's right all the time. And he thought we would become really good friends, so we were at a party, and he said, hey, you two, I think you would be good friends. You both love the Frog and Toad books. Talk. And then that night, we talked about the Frog and Toad books for like 2 or 3 hours. And we became really good friends. And it's pretty much still all we do is sit around and talk about books. And a lot of times, still Frog and Toad. And we became friends and talked about books all the time for months and months. And then I saw a picture that John had done when he was in college. And it was of a girl walking her dog through the snow. And they were both wearing matching sweaters. And I really loved this picture. And so I just keep lots of pictures that I like. Sometimes I'll drag them onto my computer to save them. And I dragged it onto my computer. And just the name of the file name was Extra Yarn. And then I just couldn't stop thinking about that. And that phrase and that picture. And pretty soon, I started thinking of a story involving that girl and that dog and that sweater and that phrase, extra yarn. And I wrote this whole story out. And I was writing it for John, so I wanted to put a bunch of things that I loved to see John draw. And I finished and I was so excited, but then I was really nervous because I didn't know if maybe this was for something that John was working on. And it's really weird for a book to start that way. Most of the time it starts with the author and not with the illustrator with a picture. So it was really strange. So I wrote John an email, and I was really nervous. I said, John, you know that picture, Extra Yarn, on your site? Is that do you have a story for that? And he was like, no, that's just a thing I made in college as a project. And I said, great, here's a Word document. And luckily, he liked it, because if not, I don't think I could have done anything with it legally. No, I just would have had Peter Brown do it, and thanks, Alice. So, this was our first book together, and it's a really special book for us. And I think it's probably still, it's very special of all the books we've made. And so I was really happy, first of all, to just even be invited here as part of this program. I think it's so cool for a city to all read the same book together. And the fact that you all read this book that we made, which is a special book for me and John, and just a special book in my life and my career. I'm so happy, and I just wanted to read it for everybody now, although I know you already read it. So, Extra Yarn by us again. Oh, and that's my agent, Stephen Mulk. On a cold afternoon in a cold little town, where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from chimneys, Annabelle found a box filled with yarn of every color. So she went home and knit herself a sweater. And when Annabelle was done, she had some extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for Mars, too. But there was still extra yarn. And when Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed and said, "You two look ridiculous." "You're just jealous," said Annabelle. "No, I'm not," said Nate. But it turned out he was. And even after she'd made a sweater for Nate and his dog and for herself and for Mars, she still had extra yarn. At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet," shouted Mr. Norman. "Quiet, everyone. Annabelle, that sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach with everyone turning around to look at you." "Well, then I'll knit one for everyone," Annabelle said, "so they won't have to turn around." "Impossible," said Mr. Norman. "You can't." But it turned out she could. And she did. Even for Mr. Norman. And when she was done, Annabelle still had extra yarn. So she knit sweaters for her mom and dad, and for Mr. Pendleton and Mrs. Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer, and for little Lewis. She made sweaters for everyone, except Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters or even long pants, and would stand in his shorts with the snow up to his knees. "No sweater for me, thanks," said Mr. Crabtree. So she made Mr. Crabtree a hat. And even then, Annabelle still had extra yarn. So she made sweaters for all the dogs and all the cats, for other animals too. Soon, people thought, soon Annabelle will run out of yarn. But it turned out she didn't. So Annabelle made sweaters for things that didn't even wear sweaters. Things began to change in that little town. News spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn, and people came to visit from around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hand. One day, an archduke who was very fond of clothes sailed across the sea and demanded to meet Annabelle. "Little girl," said the archduke, "I would like to buy that miraculous box of yarn, and I'm willing to offer you $1 million. "No, thank you," said Annabelle, who was knitting a sweater for a pickup truck. The archduke's mustache twitched. $2 million, he said. Annabelle shook her head. "No, thanks." $10 million, shouted the archduke. "Take it or leave it." "Leave it," said Annabelle. "I won't sell the yarn." And she didn't. So that night, the archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabelle's house. And they stole the box and took it to the archduke, who set off across the snow and sailed over the sea back to his castle. The archduke put on his favorite song and sat in his best chair. And he took out the box, and he lifted its lid, and he looked inside. His mustache quivered. It shivered. It trembled. The archduke hurled the box out the window and shouted, "Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again." But it turned out she was. And that is the end of that story. Thank you so much. So I have a little more I want to show you. I do things a little differently. I kind of take questions in the late middle. So if you have anything you want to know, we have microphones here, and you can just come on up to them, and I would be happy to answer your questions about extra yarn, or any of my books, or being an author, or books in general, or really anything you want to know. I will do my best to answer. And we take questions from kids and grown-ups and absolutely anybody. So, yeah, come on up.
Why isn't John here?
Why isn't John here? Yeah, you can applaud for that. It's a little more of an accusation than a question, but I'm happy to field it. John lives in Los Angeles, California, and he would love to be here. He and his wife are going to have a baby, like, literally at any moment. So he's not really doing much traveling right now. And I think, I can understand that. But thinking about things in another way, John and I have a baby as well, called Extra Yarn, being celebrated by Broomfield today. So you can evaluate. Yeah, you can applaud for that. And you can all evaluate for yourselves John's decision. Yeah, let's get a question from over here.
It's funny that he makes sweaters for everyone.
It's funny that she makes sweaters for everyone. I know, I like that too, including, sometimes she's making sweaters for things I'm not sure everybody even necessarily wants one of these sweaters. Like, some of these kids seem pretty surprised. But she doesn't care. She makes sweaters for everyone except one person. Except one person who very clearly says, I do not want a sweater. I don't wear sweaters. I don't want them. And she makes one hat. And I like that part a lot. That is always a big part for John and me. There's one person who says, nope, I don't want a sweater. I just like standing out here in my shorts in the snow. And she knows that he won't be happy with the sweater. And so she makes him a hat. And it's one of the closest up on a face that I've ever seen John draw. He doesn't really like to draw people very much. So I keep writing him stories with people in them. And he likes to draw them from far away. But that's, I think, probably the closest he ever gets on a person's face, because we both thought that was a really important moment. Yes?
Why did for a girl there was infinite yarn, but for the Archduke there wasn't any?
Yeah, why for the girl Annabelle was there infinite yarn, but why for the Archduke wasn't there any? Do you have any thoughts about the answer to your own question? Why do you think that happened?
Because there's only in the box decides that the only people who are nice can get yarn.
Because the box decides maybe only people who are nice can get yarn. I think that's a better answer than I could ever give to that question. That's fantastic. Thank you for that question and answer. Yes, what is your question?
Why didn't you read the square and the circle book?
Why didn't I read the square and the circle book? I would love to just sit here and read all 35 of my books with you today, but I think people would just slowly trickle out. Yeah. But have you read the square or the circle book? No? Well, you always have a chance to read them yourself, and now you can kind of hear at least what I think Triangle and Square's voice is like. You haven't heard my circle yet, but I bet the circle in your mind will be pretty good too. Yes?
What was it like reading extra yarn?
Writing. What's it like writing extra yarn? I'm glad you said that. That's a good question, because writing extra yarn was different than any other book I've made. And John says this too, that illustrating it was different from any other book that he had illustrated. At the end, we had this weird feeling, and this is going to be hard to explain because it's only happened to us in extra yarn. Neither of us really felt like we made the book. We sort of felt like we'd remembered this book. Even though it's a book that had never existed before, we sort of felt like we were remembering a story that we had heard as kids or that somebody had told us. Neither of us really felt like we made the stuff. It felt like we were like channeling this thing, like the story was coming through us, and it's the only time either of us have ever felt that way. Yeah. Most of the time writing a book is a real struggle for me. Most of the time as a writer, I'm just walking around my house not writing. Really stressed about writing, getting stuck, not knowing how to finish a sentence, not liking what I'm writing. It takes me a long time to do this, but this book, I just sort of wrote it. It just sort of flowed, and it felt really good. Yeah, thank you. Let's go over here.
Where did you get the picture of the girl and the dog walking?
Where did I get the picture from the girl and the dog walking? It was up on John's website, so that's where I saw it. He just had like work when he was starting off. There was a bunch of work that he had done when he was younger, and that was one of them. Yeah. Yes.
Why doesn't John like to draw people?
Why doesn't John like to draw people? That's a good question. Again, I wish John were here to answer it. I don't know. I think he gets really stressed out because with people there are lots of choices. You can see that even like some of the people, like when we did these people, John made an interesting choice. Sam and Dave, All they do is talk and eat. And what are they missing? Mouths. So he likes, even when he's drawing people, he sometimes stops before he's even done with the face. I think that there's so many choices to make with drawing people that he just gets really stressed out. He much more likes drawing animals or just putting eyes on a triangle. Different illustrators just like to draw different things. Some illustrators like to draw people, some illustrators like to draw animals, some like to draw nature or trucks, and John just doesn't really love to draw people. Yeah. Yes.
Why didn't have mouths?
Why didn't they have mouths? I think John just liked how it looked with no mouths. Because when you're drawing somebody, you're always choosing what to leave on and what to take off. You know, people don't always draw fingernails on a hand. We just sort of put them in with our imaginations. Sometimes people, you don't draw every strand of hair. You just choose what you draw and what you don't. Every drawing, every piece of writing, every story is about what you put in and what you leave out. And John decided, I'm going to leave out their mouths. Yeah.
How did Sophie or that girl make the sweaters so fast?
That's a good question. In Extra Yarn, Annabelle, how did she make the sweaters so fast? We don't really know how long it took her to make these sweaters. So something I really like about picture books is there are a bunch of page turns. And so every page turn, we don't know how much time it takes in between a page turn. So right here, it says, "You're just jealous," said Annabelle. "No, I'm not," said Nate. But it turned out he was, and he's wearing a sweater. Now, it's really funny just to have the sentence be linked to that last sentence and to see Nate not wearing a sweater and then wearing a sweater. But that doesn't mean it happened in 30 seconds. There could have been months in between when that started and when that page got turned. We don't ever say. So you can flash forward or backward in time. Every single page turn can contain infinity. And we don't ever have to say how much time it took. So that's just a way that you can use the picture book to sort of play around with time, to just make the story go how you want it to go. Because, it wouldn't be very fun to say, like, Annabelle went home and there was spring break, so she got some extra time in there. Pretty soon, though, it was the end of the year, and that gets stressful. Where does the time go in December? We get to just take care of all of that with a page turn. It's a fun thing about picture books. Yes, right here.
So, on some of the books, why didn't you really finish reading them?
Why didn't I really finish reading them? Like, which ones?
Like the agent one and...
Oh, the secret agent one. Why didn't I finish reading it? Because it's got, over 100 pages, and I just thought I'd just give everyone a taste of it. Yeah. Thank you. I could tell you were sort of satisfied with that answer. Yes, right here.
What was your favorite book to make and why?
My favorite book to make and why? My favorite book to make was probably a book I made called Battle Bunny, and I made that with a friend of mine named John Sheska, and he's one of my heroes, and a reason that I started writing picture books. And that book is about a kid who gets a book he doesn't like very much for his birthday called Birthday Bunny, and then he takes the book and he messes with it, and he turns it into Battle Bunny by drawing all over it with pencil. And we just had so fun writing a very sweet, syrupy story and then messing with our own story. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. Yes?
Why do the people not have mouths, but the chicken does?
That's a good point. Chicken has a beak. I think that a person without a mouth, they still look like people, but a chicken without a beak, that's going to scare everybody. You can write that down. Yes?
When are you gonna write your next book?
When am I going to write my next book? So I'm actually working on my next book right now. It's the fourth Mac B Kid Spy. So I wrote the first draft, and now I'm going back into the second draft as soon as I get home. Thanks for reminding me. Are you my editor? No, sorry, I confused me with my editor for a second. All right. Yes, right here.
Why didn't they get that crystal?
Why didn't they get that crystal? It's so frustrating, isn't it? That's why we wanted to make the most frustrating thing possible. Yeah, they never know. They didn't know. But who did know where the crystal was? The dog, yeah. Yes.
What were you thinking about when you made extra yarn and Sam and Dave dig a hole?
What was I thinking about when I made Extra Yarn and Sam and Dave Dig a Hole? Extra Yarn, I was thinking a lot about what kind of characters live in John Clausen's universe. It seemed like a place where maybe there'd be an archduke and a lot of snow, and so that's sort of what I was thinking about there. And I was thinking about a lot of classic stories that I loved and grew up on. Sam and Dave, I was just trying to think of how to make the words and the pictures work together in the most interesting way possible. Yeah. Yes.
What is it called when you make a memoir that's fiction?
What's it called when you make a memoir that's fiction? I don't know why you'd ask that. I mean, I don't know. That's not really my thing. I guess you just call it a fictionalized memoir. But, yeah, I'm not an expert in that. Sorry. Yeah. Yes.
What inspired you to write Sam and Dave Dig a Hole?
What inspired me to write Sam and Dave Dig a Hole? You know, I think it was just a big plate of huevos rancheros that inspired me. That's what I was having that morning. But also it was inspired by, I really loved digging around trying to find treasure when I was a kid. So it was inspired both by that and how funny I thought it would be if two kids went digging for treasure and just missed it. Another thing that really inspired us, actually, is video games, especially a video game called Dig Dug, and where you dig around looking for treasure in the ground. Yeah, John and I both love video games, and Sam and Dave, a lot of our books are inspired by video games, but Sam and Dave really is inspired by video games. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Why?
Yeah. All right, we'll try to get through everybody rapid fire. Yes.
Why did Mr. Crabtree not want a sweater?
Why did Mr. Crabtree not wear a sweater? When it gets really cold and snowy, do you ever drive around and see somebody just standing out in their yard who maybe isn't wearing enough clothes for the snow, but they just seem to like it that way? No? I have. So Mr. Crabtree was sort of based on those kind of people for me. Yeah. Yes.
Do you know the book I Want My Hat Back? And if you do, how do you like it?
Do I know the book I Want My Hat Back? And if so, how do I like it? I do know that book. And I think it's fantastic. I love that book. Yeah, that was written and illustrated by John Clausen. And I think it's one of my favorite books of the last 10 years. I think it's really great. Yeah. Yes.
The cat in the other picture, it's different because on the other picture the collar is blue and on this picture the collar is pink.
That's right. Yeah, it's a different cat. Yeah, that's right. Nice spotting. Yes.
Everything is a hard.
Sorry, would you say that one more time?
Everything had a hard.
You wish we had a... All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's great. Absolutely. Yes.
What was the inspiration for some of your favorite books?
For some of my favorite books, you know, all books, they're just always inspired by the things you care about. Inspiration is sort of hard to talk about because it feels like it comes from outside your brain. But I think the things authors are good at are just paying attention all the time to the stuff that we care about. The stuff that makes us happy and angry. The things that we think are beautiful and ugly. The books we read that are great. The books that we read that we want to throw across the room. Paying attention to those strong feelings, that's what makes your brain ready for an idea. Writers basically do two things. We figure out what we care about, and then we figure out how to make other people care about the things that we care about. So I'm always paying attention. When I see something that I really like or I really don't like, I write it down and I never stop thinking about it. And that's, I feel like, what makes your brain good soil to grow an idea. Yeah. The great thing, too, is like, as kids, that's your main job in your whole life, is just to figure out what you care about. All right, let's get these last questions. Here we go. Yes?
I am curious, why did Archduke took the box and stole it?
Why did that Archduke take the box? Why did he steal it? First of all, he's not a good guy. If he can't buy it, he's going to steal. Second of all, he loves fancy clothes. So I think he's just really excited about all the suits he could make if he had unlimited yarn. Yeah. Some good capes. Yes?
Why did she make a hat? One hat.
Why did she make one hat? Because that is what Mr. Crabtree really would want. He would like a hat. She just sort of knew he would like a hat, not a sweater. He likes to be a little bit different. He's not going to wear what everybody else is wearing. Oh, and our last question here.
What were you eating when you got inspired by Sam and Dave dig a hole?
What was I eating that day? I was eating when I got inspired. It was those huevos rancheros. That's what I was eating. It's one of my favorite breakfasts. And that's what I was having that day. Yeah. Thank you for that question. John was having pancakes. All right, now before you go, I want to just share one more thing with everybody. And before I do this last thing, I'll be sticking around and signing too. So by the way, if you had a question that you didn't get answered, feel free to come up and just ask it and say hello. Before I show you this last thing, I do want to thank so much Broomfield and the Broomfield Library for having me out for here. And thank all of you, because this happens, because, I mean, this is a community event. So thank you for reading the book, for coming out to it, supporting your library. I want to thank everybody for being here, so thank you so much. Yeah, this is applauding for your town. This isn't me. I already milked enough applause. So I just want to leave everybody. This is sort of like the story behind one of my stories. My first book, Billy Twitters and His Blue Whale Problem, that's about a kid who gets a blue whale as a pet, but a punishment, and it ruins his life. And I want to show you sort of the story behind how that book came about. So that story starts out, of course, with this. I think everybody knows what that is. That is the United States of America, exactly as it looks from space. And I live not too far away in Oakland, California, just over here. That's where I had an idea for a book. And I would write it going to and from work, type it up, took it home, made a first draft, second draft, third draft, fourth draft. Finally, on the fifth draft, I said, that's it. It's done. It's finished. And I pressed print, and there it was, my book. Except it wasn't a book yet. It was just words on a page. There were no illustrations. There was no hardcover. It was just words. So we sent my book off to New York City to an editor. New York is where a lot of editors live. Here, this is either a red Statue of Liberty or my editor holding a flashlight. It's very difficult to tell from space. Now, an editor reads stories all day. That's a job you could have if you love books. They read stories and they decide which stories are going to be made into books. And then once they decide to make a story into a book, they're like teachers. They help make your stories better. So they say, fix this, or change the ending, or that joke's not very funny. So my editor called me up and she said, Mac, we love this book. We want to publish it. We think it's perfect. Now here's everything you have to change about it. She said, fix this, change the ending. That joke's not very funny. Also, that joke's not very funny. Also, that joke's not very funny. And she sent it back to me with a bunch of changes to make. And some of those changes I made, and some of them I just ignored. I sent it back to her. And she was like, why'd you ignore so many of my changes? I was like, I didn't think they were good ideas. She's like, well, I thought they were great ideas. I was like, well, that's the difference between you and me. And she was like, do it. And I was like, you're not the boss of me. And she was like, yeah, and we went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, until most of the United States of America was crossed out. It was crazy. A lot of you are probably too young to remember, but it was nuts. It looked like that for months. Now, though, it had been through like 12 drafts. It was time to send it to an illustrator. We sent it to an illustrator named Adam Rex. He's got some cool glasses. in Philly. He lives in Philadelphia. I'm going to draw his glasses right there in Philadelphia. And Adam started doing all these paintings, and when I saw him, I was very impressed, but I was also very confused because my book is about a whale, and all of his paintings were of monsters. And I was like, Adam, what is this? And he was like, oh, these paintings aren't for your picture book. They're for a picture book that I wrote called Frankenstein Makes a Sandwich. And that's a good book. That's a good book. It's not my book. And I was like, Adam, when are you going to do my book? And he was like, that is the next picture book that I illustrate. But first, I'm going to write a novel. And then this illustrator wrote a chapter book that was more than 400 pages long. It's called The True Meaning of Smek Day. And it's a good book. It is a good book. Did anybody see that movie Home that came out a couple years ago? That movie is based on his book. It's a great book. But it's not my book. And I was like, Adam, when are you going to do my book? And he's like, that is the next thing that I work on. But first I'm going to move to Arizona. And then Adam walked to Arizona. Took him so long. He got lost up in Canada, came down, and he's on the Rockies. He got snowed in on a mountaintop. He was stuck there for 3 months. He briefly, he ran out of food and was briefly considered cannibalism. He decided against it. It's a good thing he was traveling alone. Finally, he got into the desert. Here is Adam Rex, sort of in Arizona, or a cactus wearing glasses. Very difficult to tell. Adam Rex looks exactly like a cactus wearing glasses. If you ever meet him, you should tell him that. From you, not me. And then Adam started pulling out his paints and canvases, and he made all these paintings of whales, and that took a very long time, too. And the whole time, he had to make like 30 paintings of whales, and the whole time I was just sitting over here in California, and I was just so sad, because people kept asking me, hey, Mac, when's your book coming out? And I was like, I don't know, I think soon. They said, that's what you always say. And your book never comes out. You know what? I don't believe you. I don't believe you wrote a book. I don't believe you're ever going to write a book. I think you're a liar and a fraud. And then I started crying. And that's how the Pacific Ocean got filled with water. So, has anybody ever been to California and seen the ocean at all? Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, but that's science. We're talking about literature. Finally, Adam sent all of his paintings off to New York City. Now, everything is here, but once a book gets printed, it's got to go to libraries and bookstores all over the country, right? So everything's here, but they got to go here, 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 here. So where do you think it makes the most sense to print these books to get everything where it needs to be the fastest? Where do you shout out a guess? Yeah, oh, California, I would love that, right? Boom, we got a lot of space. I can get my book so fast. Boom, California. I think that's a great idea, especially because I can get my book first. You're close. It's not right here in California. It's just over here in China. So that's exactly what China looks like from space. And, no, I'm sorry. That's exactly what China looks like from space. And in China, they have these huge printing presses, and they print out thousands of copies of the book. It's just this huge tower of books. It's so tall, it's swaying in the wind. It's so tall, you can see it from space. Just my books and the Great Wall of China, you can see them both from space. They look very similar. It's hard to say which is which. It's hard to say which is a greater monument to human achievement. Probably my books. And now the books are done, and a good thing too, because look, this has taken so long that I've grown this huge beard, and I'm still crying, so I have tears in my beard, just this wet, soggy beard hanging on my chest, soaking through my good t-shirts. That's a bad situation. What's the fastest way to get books from China to the United States? What do you put them on? A plane. Yeah, that is why they go on this boat. It's an old steamship, and it slowly sails through my tears. Every day is the same on the water until, uh-oh, look at this is bad. Pirates. Cannonballs start flying through the air. There's a sword fight on the deck of the ship. The pirates are the captain overboard into the ship. They're into the water. There's sharks in the water. But before they throw him overboard, right, they steal his keys. Oh, and then the lead pirate, he's unlocking this huge metal door. It's like clank, clank. The other pirates are back there with their peg legs and eye patches. They're like, ah, ha, clank, clank, ah, ha, clank. He drops the keys, clank, clank. And they're like, ah, he's like, ah. He kicks the door open to see what they've plundered. It's just books. Pirates aren't very big readers. They go down to the South Pacific. That's just where pirates go when they get sad. I don't really know why. Meanwhile, the ship continues. Now the first mate is the captain. He's excited about what happened until, uh-oh, look, this is even worse. Sea serpent. Fire breathing. So they go around him. And that's how they end up off course, lost in the Bermuda Triangle. The ship just disappears for 3 months. I'm on the radio every day, short a ship. Come in, where are you? Nothing. Where are you? Where are you? Nothing, nothing. Until one day, 3 months later, the ship pops out up here by Canada. The crew doesn't remember how they got there. They can't remember the last 3 months. And get this, all the books were fine when they went into the Bermuda Triangle, but they came out printed backwards. Why? It's a mystery of the Bermuda Triangle. I think it's magnets or aliens. Anyway, you know what that means. Back into the Bermuda Triangle, another 3 months, blah, 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 blah. Now the boat pops out. All the books are printed the right way, but everybody on the crew is left-handed. That's cool. Comes into harbor. Gets on trucks and trains. Everybody gets a copy of the book. Maine gets a copy of the book. I get a copy of the book. I'm so excited, I shave my beard. And I start smiling. This weird, crooked smile that scares children. And you can see I'm still crying. I'm still crying, but now I'm crying tears of joy because I'm so glad that the book is done. I'm crying tears of pure happiness. I mean, it's not pure happiness. There's a little bit of sadness, but that's just a deep sadness that's always there. I'm sorry, it's mostly joy. It's mostly joy. It's mostly joy. Because the book is done, and that is how a book is made. So if anybody ever asks you, hey, how is a book made? Well, now you can just draw them this picture. And you're going to tell them that Mac Barnett told you. Thank you so much for hanging out. It was a lot of fun spending time with you this afternoon. Thank you, Susan, and the whole Broomfield staff. I really love being in your city.